there's going to be risks wherever you go. I would say risk management's important, but just don't fret it. Like, kids are pretty resilient.
Yeah.
They really are. They bounce back pretty well. I'm amazed any of us lived like the stuff we did, right?
Welcome to the Wilderness Wavelength Podcast.
We're back. This is another episode of the Wilderness Wavelength Podcast. I'm excited. Scott Sunderwald back on the show. Welcome back, Scott.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah. A lot has happened since the last time you were on. This episode, we're going to dig into, how'd you put it? Raising wilderness children?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Let's go with that.
That's a good way to do it.
Raising wilderness children.
I thought maybe, though, we would just touch on quickly the big event that happened in Jasper here, like the forest fires. How's that affecting you? Like, I know you spent a lot of time in Jasper, and like your kids, or some of your kids are forest fighters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 4 of my boys have done wildfire. 2 are still doing it. So, it struck pretty close to home. I remember feeling a little bit emotional one night there, seeing pictures of the place on fire and so many places that you've hiked and gone and explored in the last couple decades. So I think on a positive note, it's maybe not as bad as we feared. 30-40% of the town is still pretty nasty.
Yeah.
But it's better than 100% of the town. And, I'm very curious to get out into some of those canyons and mountainsides and to see exactly what was burned. But as we've said before, nature's going to bounce back.
Yeah.
And she'll do just fine.
Yeah, I mean, the people, like, it's tough, like you mentioned, there's so many homes burnt down, but is there something that we could have done? Like, I've seen a lot of people talking about you got to have, like, fire perimeters and stuff. Like, is that something you can do in a town like that, or is it just kind of like that's how the town was built? And
I think it was always challenging in a place like Jasper National Park. Ecological integrity is one of their main philosophies, so they kind of let nature have its way. The challenge is, over the years, as we fight fire, we actually make a bigger hazard for ourselves, and you end up with lodgepole pine forest that's over 100 years old, and it's a tinderbox ready to go. I think if we could kind of sit back, take that 30,000-foot view of what could have been done, I would say small-scale logging around that community could have had a major impact. But again, you're up against some regulations that don't fit so well in a national park situation, right?
Wild. Yeah, like you say, like as we're recording this, the town's still evacuated, the highway's still shut down, so like the extent is still unknown for most of us. But were your kids out there doing?
My boys were fighting other fires, and that was part of the challenge. Is they got the call to help out. Alberta Wildfire got the call from the feds.
Yeah.
But we had 170 fires burning at that time.
Yeah.
So there's only so many water bombers and helicopters and dozers that you can bring to the situation. And I think by the time that fire grew so big that by the time the resources came, it was almost too late.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk more about this as the episodes progress, and I'd love to see what Jasper, like what it looks like after this too. But let's get into this episode. We're talking about raising wilderness kids. So I got a 3-year-old. Your grandson's 4.
My grandson's 4. Yeah.
He looks like on your post, like a Northern Rockies bushcraft. You can follow along with Scott on Instagram there. We're recording in the backyard and the dog's all over the place here. What's it like taking your grandkid out now?
Oh, it's great fun, and you know what this is like, is kids are just so full of wonder. It's a bit like imagine Christmas without kids. It's just a very different experience if you have Christmas with kids. And in some ways I feel having kids in the great outdoors is the same way. Every little waterfall is just magical, these colorful rocks, these beautiful trees, these mushrooms, things that we take for granted as adults, kids are just seeing for the first time, and it's fantastic, right?
When you were growing up, so you grew up in Germany, what was your childhood like? What was your parents' view on like you going out into the bush? Yeah,
so I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and it was a different time back then. I talked to a lot of people my age, and the rule was be good and be home by supper, right? And that was pretty much it. And the rest we made up we would meet as kids and play hide and seek or build slingshots and forts and, cook potatoes on open fires and crazy things when I look back. Like, I remember years where my dad would drop me and my buddy off. We were 10 and 11 years old. And he'd drop us off at the river at morning and pick us up in the evening. Big river.
Yeah.
And we'd fish all day, build fires.
Yeah.
Like we could have drowned 100 times over.
Yeah.
We're catching turtles and crayfish. And those are my memories, right? And yet nothing serious ever happened. We certainly got some stitches and bumps and scrapes and the odd broken bone. But it could have been a lot worse, right?
So then you... so you raised 6 kids, but your timeline, like, where were you living before you moved out to Hinton?
So my wife and I met in British Columbia.
Yeah.
And I spent a few years there, and then we moved to Saskatchewan, where she's from.
Okay.
And, had 6 kids. Wow. So how did that happen? In any case, I was really wanting to move the family to a place similar to where I grew up in the Black Forest, where there's bush out the back door, mountains in the background.
Yeah.
And Hinton just checked all the boxes, and a job came up, and, we've been here ever since, and no regrets. It's been a wonderful place to raise a family and to have that wilderness lifestyle. Like, we literally have wilderness out the back door and town out the front door, so it's been a great place for the family. And now they're all adults and off to university and got jobs of their own. It goes fast, George.
Oh yeah,
it goes
I know,
fast.
So when you're raising your kids, would you drop a 10 and 11-year-old off at the river for the day, or did things change?
I'm scratching my head about that. We have given our kids a lot of freedom. Like, my kids rock climb, they hunt and fish and scramble, and there's things that they do now that kind of make me shudder, especially the height stuff, and we can talk about risks a little later in the podcast here. So bottom line, we gave them a ton of freedom.
Yeah.
We had a big Alaskan Malamute, and he and the kids would just head in the bush, and they'd be gone for hours. And I was fine with it. They were fine with it. And there's always things that can happen, but I think life is inherently risky, whether you're in the inner city or whether you're in the wilderness, right?
When you have the 6 kids growing up like that, are they all, they all have their own personalities, of course, but were they all interested in being in the wilderness, or was that like some of them were like, no, I'm good, like I'll stay and watch TV?
They're really all into the wilderness, but in their own way. So, I got some of them who love to rock climb, and others are really big into hunting, and some like fishing, and some, it's not really their thing, and others are mountain biking, and everybody kind of found their niche, which is fine. And I think, as parenting, you kind of want to expose kids to a variety of opportunities and see what they latch onto, and you just never really know.
How did you expose them then? Like, is it just, okay, you guys go into the bush, or like, are you saying, okay, here's... like, what kind of training do you give them before you let them go on their own?
I think the issue with us is we're big into the outdoors, outdoor rec, so they just got dragged along. Like 6 kids, we went everywhere. We would canoe together, sleep on islands in the river when they were super young.
Yeah.
I remember winter camping with them, and nobody's in the campgrounds, and we've got babies in what do you call them? Those snowsuits, real thick snowsuits, like astronauts. And we would take them fishing, ice fishing, hunting. They were with us when we were getting firewood, or it was just part of the lifestyle. And I think they grew up just thinking this is normal life.
Yeah,
right?
This is how things go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like, it's funny. We got some friends. I'm kind of in the same boat. I moved away from Edmonton to come out here and raise the family, in the mountains, a little more in nature, closer to the wilderness. And we have some friends there, and it's like, hey, you have 2 kids now. We're not doing anything. It's too much work to go on a camping trip. It's too much work to take a trip. When you got 6 kids, how do you balance your life and taking all your, like, you're going hunting. How do you handle taking 6 kids with you?
Oh, man, it was chaos, right? And I remember I had a friend over when the kids were young, and I thought the kids were super well behaved. We had a meal, and he leaned over to me and he goes, "Is your life always this chaotic?" And I was like, this is just normal, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. But on that note, you got to start them young or you'll miss out. So I was teaching survival programs in BC and Saskatchewan, and I can't remember which province it was, but this couple came up to me and they told me the story. They had kids, and they loved the outdoors, but they decided it would be too much hassle to take the little kids. So they decided as parents that they would wait until the kids are teenagers, and then they would try to bring them in the outdoors once they're a little more mature.
Right.
And it completely backfired, because by then it was too late. And when they tried to take them camping, the kids hated the rain and the smoke and the mosquitoes, and they just wanted their smartphones and their televisions and their friends in the city. And so for any parents listening here, man, you got to start them young and make it a normal part of their upbringing.
Yeah.
Right?
We're kind of on the same boat. Like, I mean, it was raining a little bit today, and rather than like, okay, it's raining, we got to stay inside, it's like, it's raining, let's get our rain jacket on, our boots, let's go find some puddles to jump in, you know? Like, if you're not going out, especially like in the winter too, because it's cold, you're missing half the year, you know? You're stuck inside half the year.
Absolutely.
Before we started recording, you mentioned something, I never heard of this before, but nature deficit disorder. What's that about?
Yeah, so there's a pretty famous book in the nature circles called Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv. And it was pretty revolutionary. I think it came out about 10 years ago, but he really looked at the psychological effects of raising kids without nature. Mm-hmm. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in society, whether it's higher levels of anxiety, depression, childhood, obesity, the lack of responsibility, the lack of being able to take care of yourself and leadership, you know. And part of that, you know, you've heard about helicopter parents and bubble wrap kids and families who their heart's in the right place. They're trying to protect their kids, but they're actually doing a greater disservice in that their kids are not learning to grow up with the responsibilities of early generations. And there's a fine balancing act there, right? You want to make sure people are safe, but you also want to make sure that kids can eventually spread their wings and fly. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a 40-year-old kid in your basement, George.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, that's that kind of leads into our podcast question of the week. Maybe we'll do that right now. So I posted this one. What is your most needed accessory when bringing your toddler camping? When you're taking your grandson camping, is there something that you're making sure you bring all the time? Anything like that?
I would say certainly, you know, warmth is an important thing in the Northern Rockies here. So that's clothing and a good sleeping bag.
Yeah.
The one thing I'd bring up, which we did with our kids, because we had 6 of them, and we'd take them backpacking or into the backcountry, Kootenays and Yoho and other places, and we bought them Fox 40 whistles. Are you familiar with those?
No.
They're kind of a emergency whistle, and they won't freeze up. They're not like a referee's whistle with a P in it.
Yeah.
And they're super loud. And we put them around every kid's neck so that when we were out hiking, you know, and they run off if they ever needed to call for help. We taught them to, you know, find a good tree, stay where you are, and blow on that Fox 40 whistle, and you'll hear it half a kilometer away.
Yeah.
And trying to teach kids, don't keep running and look for us, because you will actually get more lost. Stay where you are, blow your whistle. So that's a good little thing that every toddler can have. The problem is he'll be blowing on it nonstop, but at least you'll know where he is.
And he's been blowing it pretty steadily. He's pretty excited when we have that whistle, so we kind of choose when it comes out or not. Man, a ton of comments. People say bring in a babysitter. Grandma. So like the number one comment has been like grandma or babysitter. A couple of these are pretty good, like a pail and a shovel that can keep your toddler busy for hours. So I mean, a lot of these, like when we're talking toddlers, like it's a young child you're taking with you. Collapsible play yard, fence. So these would be things like if you're going into a campground, handy to have. Lots of comments for alcohol. Bring alcohol with you.
Not for your toddler.
No. There's some cool ones though I thought were pretty good, like print off a camping scavenger hunt with pictures of what to find.
Yep.
I like that idea. Let's go find some pine cones or find a little creek or a rock. When we're taking Casey with us camping, I think, as you mentioned, our number one thing is we're just trying to make sure he's warm, because as soon as he gets soggy and cold, then things get a little more complicated.
Yeah.
And if we're going somewhere, especially if we're sitting around the fire or kind of camping. We were camping at the music festival there last weekend. We just had a sound machine going on in the trailer, that works good.
Helps him sleep.
Yeah, it helps him sleep, and then we can sit around the fire and have a little music playing. It's not bothering him or keeping him up. And I mean, usually when we're camping, he's up later anyways and pretty wore out from the day. So a folding wagon, that came up quite a few times in these comments. Bug spray, sunscreen, all kind of standard stuff. But I think what I'm gathering from most of these comments is like, if you can bring your kid out when they're little and just have something for them to do. And, most kids, you bring a little shovel and a pail, they're happy for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. That kind of fits into that whole unstructured play thing, which I think is so important, and I think as, what's your kid's name again?
Casey.
As Casey gets older, you're going to be like, do we put him in soccer practice? Do we put him in hockey? What about guitar lessons?
Those conversations are right going on, yeah.
And all that stuff's great, but what we found is kids nowadays don't even know unstructured play. Everything is programmed. It's all scheduled. And I remember growing up where we had very little structured activity. It was never, okay, Mom's got a play date for you. You're going to meet Johnny from, 8 to 10, and then you're back home. No, it was very much, again, get out of the house, play with your friends, and come back and be good. And we had just so much freedom. So I do think that unstructured play in the great outdoors is absolutely essential. And that's how kids are going to learn responsibility and leadership and self-dependency and all those things that we're trying to teach them as we're raising them to be responsible adults.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's say someone's listening to this podcast and they don't have, like, maybe they're living in Edmonton or something. What kind of adventures can you go on? Like, is maybe like going into wilderness is not as easy as just walking out the back door.
Yeah, for sure. So I like to talk about mini adventures with kids, and a mini adventure could be setting up a little tent in your backyard and camping overnight, even in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
Or, going to the neighborhood park and identifying plants and bugs, take a little butterfly net, do a little pond dip at the creek or something like that. So you don't need a fantastic, gigantic wilderness like we have around here just to immerse your kids in nature. Now certainly Edmonton has the River Valley and many other places. My daughter is in Edmonton right now, so she's taking her son out quite a bit to explore nature in the middle of the city, right? And on that note, we used to even teach our kids survival in the city.
Okay.
And every winter I would build a quinzee, that sort of igloo-shaped snow shelter, and the kids would sleep in there.
Okay.
And it was something for them to learn that snow is not a scary thing. You can stay alive in -30. Here's how you do it. We'd have a little story time, little candle in there, sleeping bags, and they loved it.
Yeah.
Mini adventure in your backyard, right?
I feel like with with how you're raising your kids, there had to be some times where things got a little dicey. Some injuries. You want to talk about any of those?
Yeah, I think it's only fair to talk about the risks, And even before we do that, I don't want to paint my childhood with rose-colored glasses. We did a lot of stupid stuff.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it today because I knew the podcast was coming, but we would, as boys, we had lots of rock fights. Hey, did you ever get into those?
Yeah.
Oh, man. It usually started with a spit fight and then crab apples, and then some guy picks up a rock, and before you know it, you got 5 guys throwing rocks.
Yeah.
So we had accidents with that. bike jumps before there were helmets.
Yeah.
And I had lots of bike accidents. And then did you ever do shooting arrows in the sky and running out of the way?
Oh, we never did that one. We did the ones where you're throwing knives, like someone's, you're sitting with your legs open and someone's trying to throw a knife towards you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes unstructured play can get off the rails, but yeah, we would take a bow and arrow and fire an arrow as high as we could in the sky.
Yeah.
And just all scream and run and hope the thing wasn't going to come down. So
yeah,
as parents, you do want to monitor enough.
Yeah.
That they're not playing with bows and arrows when they're 10.
Yeah.
But you want to give them that freedom. And certainly my kids had the odd broken collarbone or stitches and bruises. But again, raising kids not without risks. I'll talk about the inner city again. Like your kid could end up, heaven forbid, in a gang.
Yeah.
There's drug addiction. There's some horrible things that kids can get involved in, and I'd sooner take a broken collarbone on a mountain bike than some of those. So it's not like you can completely raise your kids risk-free. There's always going to be risk growing up. I think, when you look at things that can happen, drowning's a big one.
Yeah.
My daughter almost drowned in a pool, and I saved her. And she was very young. She had gone into the deep end of the pool without anybody knowing, and actually was found at the bottom of the pool, standing there. She was unconscious. That was a horrifying experience. So I would say to anybody listening here, take water very serious. You don't need to be on a raging river or an ocean to have your kid drown. Backyard pools have taken plenty of lives, tragically. So watch out with water. I think now when my grandson, when we go to the beach, he's just in a life jacket, whether he likes it or not. Because,
nonstop,
1 minute with your back turned can be a horrific experience.
Yeah.
Other things, falls. Falls are really dangerous, and I think you've probably taken a few first aid courses, but they say a fall over twice your height can be fatal.
Yeah.
Kids aren't very tall, but if you fall on the back of your head or on your spine or your neck, and it's funny I say that because my kids and I, we rock climb and we scramble. And
how old are the kids when they're going rock climbing with you?
Well, we had them. I think some of them were probably still in diapers. Like we had the harness on them. Actually, rock climbing when you're roped in is quite safe. Scrambling is more dangerous. And I quizzed my youngest son today. His name's Lance. I said, Lance, remind me, when did you hike Morrow, which is one of the smaller mountains here? He said he was 5.
Wow.
And I said, when did you do Sankfoil, which is a little higher up? Eh?
Yeah.
He was 6.
Yeah.
And then Roche Mayette, which has some really bad scree.
Yeah.
He was 8, and he summited Roche Mayette with us. And I don't remember them fussing and complaining. And I've led a lot of kids on environmental ed trips, and they walk for a block and they're like, oh, can we go home now? So it's all with what you're used to. But I am concerned about heights, and I've told the kids a grizzly bear might have mercy on you, but gravity knows no mercy. Like, gravity always works. So if you're not roped in and you're on dangerous terrain, falls are super, super serious, and probably still my greatest fear for my adult children when they're out. When I know they're climbing, scrambling, mountaineering, that makes me the most nervous. Other ones, hypothermia, broken bones, allergies. You hear of kids dying. Like, is your son allergic to bees and wasps? Has he ever been stung?
Never stung yet, no.
Yeah, so you don't know, right?
There's a lot of stuff we're not sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's a good idea to at least have Benadryl with you.
Yeah.
Good first aid kit, but you never know that will he need an EpiPen for something serious like that. But I would say drowning, falls, getting lost, hypothermia, broken bones, allergies, all those things are serious. And to kind of talk with your kids through that, what would you do if,
Do you got a go-to spot that you've maybe when you moved out to Hinton, to Northern Rockies here? with your family. Is there a go-to spot you guys try to meet up, every year, every couple years, something that you've done, like a tradition, like we're always going to this mountain or always going to this camp spot?
I think we got so many, and we're so much is dependent. What's the weather? What's the season? Do we have snow?
Mm-hmm.
Are we winter camping? Are we rock climbing? Are we canoeing? And just kind of take the pulse of the group. So
Okay.
I would say it's really hard to nail down a spot. We do have our traditions. Certainly Christmas Eve, we have a favorite slope. We all go sledding and build a fire and have some hot dogs and then head back and open presents and have a fondue. So these traditions evolved over 20 years,
And the one thing, too, I was wondering, because I know I was writing down a few questions for you today just about camping, because there was a few comments came in saying, like, hey, when my toddler gets fussy, it's like we pack up the trailer and we're heading home. Do you remember a trip like that where you had your kids and you're like, okay, like this is too much, or the kids are not having it, like we're pulling the rope, we're heading back?
I'm trying to remember. I don't think my kids ever fussed, all 6 of them.
Selective hearing.
Maybe I look back with different eyes now. There's times when they get fussy, for sure. But overall, I think they were just happy to be exploring, happy to have that company, have each other, and to be outdoors. I remember one time we were coming down a mountain and got stuck in a lightning storm, and the rain and hail came down. We were soaked to the bone. They were freaked out, so we went under some tree cover, and I just built the fire. We just got everybody warmed up again and just let them know it's okay and carried on. So there's times you have to kind of stop and regroup. Right?
Yeah. We kind of touched on this earlier on, too, just about how, like, camping with kids and going into the wilderness with kids, you're looking at things through a whole new set of eyes.
Yeah.
Which also, I mean, for me, I'm kind of more like maybe like goal oriented, I guess. It'd be like, okay, let's climb this mountain today. Like, let's get to the top of it.
Yeah.
But when you got the kid, it's like, oh, I guess we could stop at this creek and throw some rocks in it for a while. Like your plans get adjusted fairly quickly, and I'm used to it now. Like, it felt like a little bit like, okay, come on, let's keep going. Whereas now it's like, we don't need to get to the top of this mountain. Let's go have some fun. Let's explore here. And he's kind of leading the way, which seems like works better half the time anyways.
Yeah, and you're probably seeing nature through his eyes, right?
Yeah.
He's just floored because he saw a big beetle or something.
Yeah.
And it really makes you see nature through the wonder of children's eyes, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I love it. I think it's great.
His favorite thing is to go to the river and throw rocks in, and then he'll be like, oh, I'll show him a rock. I love this rock. This is a great rock. Let me see it. And then he'll grab it. He loves doing that. But we spend a lot of time throwing rocks in the rivers and the creeks, and it's just every time we pass a creek, I was like, let's go throw some rocks in. And it's a fun excuse just to go check out some rivers. So
my 4-year-old grandson's the same way. Just a creek and a pile of rocks, and he's happy for hours.
Yeah,
like, it just never ends, right? And then you start doing it, and you're like, this is kind of fun. You know? Yeah.
I remember a picture. I don't remember this happening, but I saw a picture. I think it was 2 sitting on top of a moose that my dad had just shot. Were you taking your kids hunting, like when they were little?
Absolutely. Like, I'll tell you, I took them hunting all the time. We did a lot of foraging together for mushrooms and firewood, and sometimes one fun story I recall. So there were 8 of us, right? 6 kids and 2 adults in this big Chevy van. We went to get our Christmas tree, and you pay your $5 permit. I had my chainsaw to get some firewood, and it was still the end of November, so I could still shoot a deer. So I thought, I'll throw the rifle in. So we go out, we cut a beautiful fir tree, we strap it to the roof, the kids go sledding. We're singing carols, the snow's falling. We're going down these back roads. Suddenly this monster buck steps out. I'm like, no, this is too good to be true. So I step out, shoot the buck. Now we got 8 of us, a Christmas tree, chainsaw, firewood. We cram that buck in there, and we keep going home. I'm like, this is the life, man. This is exactly what I signed up for. Wild. And they thought this was great. I mean, they knew where food came from, and it was good time. Yeah. How about you, George? Like, you grew up horseback riding in the Wilmore and stuff. And you're younger than I am, but did you have sort of that free spirit childhood as well? Or
I remember, like, I grew up on a quarter section, and we have like a lake on our property, and man, I don't know how little I was, and had like a little, I think it was a 70cc dirt bike, and I'd get home from school and it would just hop on the dirt bike and ride and ride and ride. And then my mom had this big dinner bell on the back deck, and she would clang that thing, and then I got to head back for supper. And then in the wintertime, it would just be, I'd shovel off the rink, and I would just be playing hockey all day. Like, that was just I mean, there was never a time I was inside. I didn't think we had TV growing up.
Yeah.
We had the 2 channels. And then, Dad was always, like, my dad's a big hunter. So we're always out hunting with him. And then, going into the Wilmore, it'd be a few weeks in the summer, every summer out there. And it just, I feel like looking back now, I took for granted a lot of that. Because you talk to, like, people that grew up, and it's like, oh, you got to be out there all the time. It's like, when I was growing up, it didn't feel special. It just felt like this is normal, you know? Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to the Wilmore this time and stuff. And looking back, it's like, man, I should have been, you know, a little, like, now when I'm going out there, it's like, oh, like, how did I not go here? How did I miss out on that, you know?
Right. And that's the thing, you know, I noticed with my kids, it almost took them, they had to move away from Hinton, go to university, spread their wings, and then they look back now and realize what they had. And they come back, they're like, Dad, I can't wait to go rock climbing, or I'm just counting down the days to hunting. So all those experiences, you wonder, is this making an impact in my child's life? And sometimes it just takes time for them to see what they have, right?
Well, that was the thing. I moved out I was living close to Edson, but it was like, I mean, we were close to the mountains. And then I moved out of home when I was 17, moved straight to Edmonton to live with some buddies. And it was just like, yes, I'm away from, you know, I'm in the big city where, you know, there's action and everything. And then, lived there for 10 years or whatever. And then it was like, man, I got to get back to the mountains. Like, I got to get out of this city here. So, I did realize now, like, man, I missed a few things that I took for granted I shouldn't have. But, yeah. I'm hoping as raising Casey here, it's just like every day, let's go to the river today. Let's go out here today. Let's go there. So it makes it easy for sure to get out of there.
He's going to have a great upbringing. I have no question about that. Fishing, man. Have you taken him fishing yet?
Yeah, we went fishing to the trout pond. He's not quite down with catching fish. Like I caught one on his little line. And then as soon as it's reeling, he's like, oh, you take it. But he touched it when we reeled in. So that was like, okay, here we go.
And the reason I bring up fishing is, of all the outdoor activities, bar none, fishing will test your patience with kids more than anything on the planet. Like hunting's easier, rock climbing's easier, backpacking's easier. Fishing with hooks, tangled lines, multiple kids. I've got so many stories.
Yeah, you're not getting much fishing in. You're just tying lines and
especially when you got 6 kids. Oh, yeah. The craziest time, the same trout pond, it had just been stocked, and I thought, I'll take the kids back and they'll have a good time, because really in the end, kids just need to catch something. It doesn't have to be a trophy fish.
Oh, yeah.
It just needs to be something wiggling on the line. So I brought them all out. I was setting up their lines. I said, nobody cast until I'm finished tying the lines. Yeah. Simple instruction, right? And I'm down to the last rod, and my little son Joel, he must have been 6 or 5. He got impatient, and I had tied pickerel rigs with power bait on.
Okay.
You know, with a big lead weight and 2 hooks.
Yeah.
But he was like, he would have none of it. So he wound up with this thing, and I looked up just in time to see him whip this thing, but he wasn't smart enough to open the bail on the reel.
Oh, yeah.
So this thing came out like a medieval mace flying, hit me straight in the face, split my lip.
Oh, boy.
The lead weight knocked my tooth back, almost knocked it out, so I've got this tooth permanently stuck back from that. Blood everywhere. I was just livid, right? And then I still remember a thunderstorm coming, and it's hailing and lightning, and we had to get off the water, and I'm dripping in blood, and I was like, never taking you guys fishing ever again. But there we were a week later back at it.
Back in there, yeah.
Yeah, no, fishing is definitely challenging with kids.
Yeah.
You have realistic expectations. You're going to do very little fishing yourself, right?
Do you feel like you're, like, with the grandson now, you're, like, more, I don't know if protective's the word, but, like, a little more like, okay, let's watch what we're doing now? Like you mentioned, like, life jacket as soon as he hits the beach?
Maybe I am a bit more protective. I think some of that just comes with getting older and seeing things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss. But yeah, I'm still pretty free with him. Like he clambers around and he's got a lot of freedom, but I'm always playing the what if game, right? So,
yeah.
What if he falls? What if he falls in the river? What if he falls while he's climbing? What if he puts his legs down this big ice fishing hole? This sort of thing, right?
Yeah. That's that's the thing is, like, I think a lot of parents play that what if game and that keeps them in the house.
It keeps them paralyzed, right?
Yeah. Paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
How do you get over that?
Well, as we said, that keeping them in the house isn't really any safer. That's just opening up a different can of worms to a child that's not well adapted to life and responsibility. So there's going to be risks wherever you go. I would say risk management's important, but just don't fret it. Like, kids are pretty resilient.
Yeah.
They really are. They bounce back pretty well. I'm amazed any of us lived like the stuff we did, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a couple Ask Scott questions.
It's time for Ask Scott. Email your questions to wildernesswave@outlook.com.
This one's from Terry, and she said, you mentioned on an episode you got struck by lightning.
Yeah.
What's the deets?
So I was walking with my friend to the forest. It was a crazy story. There was a youth camp, and we were both supposed to dress up as phantoms and terrify these kids, and they would chase us. So, and it started to rain, so I had an umbrella, and also had like a nylon mask and a army poncho. I'm getting into all the details here, but what was I, 16 or 17 at the time?
Yeah.
And lightning, when it's striking and it's immediate thunder and it's just right above you.
Yeah.
Well, the bolt came and the electricity traveled down my umbrella, through my upper body and through me on the street.
Wow.
Like I went flying.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy moly, I just been struck by lightning. Like, amazingly enough, I don't think it did any permanent damage. Maybe some would argue with that, but it could have been a lot worse. And the handle was wooden, and I still to this day wonder, had it been metal or something that would have not been an insulator, could have been a lot worse. Right? And my house was struck too. In Germany, every house has a lightning rod, and
they get a lot more lightning storms over there then? Or?
They're just more well-engineered, German engineering. Okay. So every house by law needs a lightning rod.
Wow.
And the lightning struck the lightning rod, rocked the house, went down the lightning rod and grounded and split the pavement in front of our house.
Oh, wow.
And I still remember that. I was just a little kid. I probably was about 5 or 6 when that happened.
Yeah.
But deafening, yeah. It's amazing more houses aren't struck, really.
Yeah. Should I get a lightning rod in this house then?
Well, it looks like your chimney will do you just fine.
Do the trick? Okay, perfect. And then this question was from Caleb. He says, I've been interested in going to school to find a job in the mountains somehow. Do you guys have any recommendations for a good way to start a career that is nature-based? Kind of broad, but...
Yeah. No, I understand Caleb completely, because that was the same with me. I wasn't absolutely sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I needed to be linked to the outdoors.
Yeah.
I would say you've got a few avenues. You could do the law enforcement avenue and go fish and wildlife, ranger, conservation officer, warden, game wardens, park wardens. Or you could go more the forestry avenue. And forestry could take you into wildfire or timber management, into government forestry or private forestry or forestry consulting. So those are great. Parks employment is fantastic if you love teaching people, as that was my career path, and
Yeah.
ended up doing outdoor education, outdoor rec.
What were you doing before
interpretation.
that? Or was that like
That was
start?
pretty much my first real job, was teaching outdoor ed. I did start in the enforcement line of things. I did a year of enforcement
Okay.
in Vancouver, and I was always dealing with drunks and angry people and this and that. And
Yeah. Like police officer?
I was going to go the route of either Fish and Wildlife or conservation.
Okay. Yeah.
And then somebody offered me a job in outdoor recreation interpretation. I was like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Everybody's here to have a good time.
Yeah.
But back to this fellow's question. Was it Caleb?
Yeah.
They're search and rescue. They're full-time jobs in kind of mountain rescue. You could become accredited as a mountain guide, teach people mountaineering if you're really hardcore into the mountains. Biologist, you could be studying grizzly bears or caribou. You're going to probably want to get a master's at least as far as level of education. So there's lots of opportunities. I would say what I've tried to tell my kids, start with an organization that has room to grow and get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
Show up, be diligent, be responsible, and you're going to start moving your way up the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would recommend. And talk to people who are doing the work and find out what you like.
Yeah. I think that's the move too. Like, I don't want to say that schooling is overrated or whatever, but I feel like people can get into, okay, I'm going to biology for 6 or 7 or 4 years. And then you're like, after doing that much schooling, maybe you realize you don't really like that direction. You're like, I did 4 years of schooling, I guess I better head this way. Whereas maybe like try a few things first.
Or you don't have the practical skills and no one will hire you, right?
Yeah.
Education's that catch-22. They won't hire you without experience, but you can't get experience without them giving you a chance. So it's tough when you're young. I would say volunteer work can be good.
Yeah.
You might be able to volunteer with Ducks Unlimited or your Fish and Game Club and start building some skills in your resume.
When your kids were growing up, were they you're teaching them like a lot of the wilderness survival and stuff. There is a few like the junior forest wardens and like programs like that. Was that something that your kids were involved in or anything like that?
Probably because they learned it at home. That we weren't so big into it. But for any parents listening, if you don't feel confident in your outdoor skills, the junior forest wardens are a great program.
Yeah.
Scouts and guides, and then as they get older, the junior forest ranger program's another excellent one. They can get chainsaw certification and learn basic firefighting. These are fantastic programs. But I dragged my kids out. We'd be like, tonight we're going to take a lean-to, build a fire in the snow, and spend the night. And that's the sort of thing we would do, right?
I love it. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
What's the so with the grandson now? What's the survival skills you're teaching him? Like, is at 4 years old?
He was even younger with me. When he could walk, he would carry my mushroom basket.
Okay.
And he called them mahma because he couldn't say mushrooms. We were going for mahma, and we would harvest mushrooms, bring them home, fry them up, and I've taken him fishing, ice fishing when he could just stand. He's like, "Baba, I caught a fish." I'm like, "No, you didn't." And I see this rod bouncing, and he's pretty lucky. Like he doesn't know what he's doing, but the fish seem to bite. So just start him young, man.
I don't know if I told you this yet. We were walking the back trail just behind the house here, like last month it must have been, and found a morel mushroom there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Christina spotted it, and I was like, oh, that looks like the one. So we brought it home. We had a little container because we got some aphids on our tree. So we're trying to get some ladybugs. So we're like, oh, let's go find some ladybugs out in the bush. So we got a little container that we were doing that. So we got a container for ladybugs and a container for mushrooms. And so now when we're taking case in the wagon, it's like, oh, yeah, he's got his ladybug wagon, and he's always looking for mushrooms now, too. So we had one morel mushroom. And
did you fry it up?
Fried her up.
So it wasn't a false morel, or you wouldn't be here today?
No, it was good. It was tasty. Yeah, Christina was like, okay, this one for sure. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't look like a brain, and it's hollow. So these things are all checking. It looked just like the pictures. So
did you like the taste?
It was good.
It was good, hey?
Yeah.
almost cheesy flavor. Yeah,
it was
like fried cheese.
I was really liked it. I mean, one mushroom to feed 3 people is stretching it pretty thin, but yeah, it was good.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, Scott's gonna be happy to hear that one.
Yeah, I'm doing a mushroom program the end of the summer, so you'll have to come out and see that. So,
are you still out getting mushrooms now? Like it's a different.
Oh, this is a good time, man. It's
not morels anymore, or
no, morels are done. Except for the last one you found. I've been out getting pig's ears, oysters, red tops. All the good stuff is starting, and it's just going to get better and better over the next few weeks. It kind of peaks around, in the Northern Rockies here, it peaks around the last week of August.
Yeah.
First week of September can be pretty good, too.
You got a couple spots that you go to regularly?
I got lots of secret spots. And they always come back to the same areas. You know, they can be hundreds, if not thousands of years old underground. So yeah.
Cool. Case was real excited because we weren't last week and we were doing a little hike around here and we had his ladybug catcher. He's like, we got to bring the other one for the mushrooms. Like, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It does me good to see you raising your kid outdoors and taking them fishing and camping, and so much of this is just about making memories, and I don't think there's anything better in life than family. And he'll remember these things, take a lot of pictures because that drills the memories home, and review them. Remember when we did this, right? So it locks it in. But I think that's what this is all about.
And like we mentioned, I mean, it's never too early to start. So like we were camping. So Case was born at the end of March, and we were camping May long that year. So he's like, less than 2 months old. We had, how did that work? We had a camper van, and then we had Casey, and we're like, there was no way to really get the car seat and everything in there. So we bought an older motor home, and that was like his first experience camping, where we could just, have his little stroller carriage on the table, and that's where he slept. And it was cool. It's like, oh, we're taking our kid camping. He's less than 2 months, and it just felt like, okay, this is going to be a good start for him.
And he was pretty contented?
Yeah. I don't know about that, but it wasn't any different than him at home. He was awake every 2 hours at home, and he was awake every 2 hours while we're camping. So
he was just as pissed off camping as he was at home. Yeah,
which I think a lot of parents will run into, where it's like, your kids might. There's going to be some cold nights, like as you mentioned. There's going to be some storms. There's going to be you're going to come across some stuff, but it'll be some memories you can have and share with your kids, and some experiences that they'll remember and come back to.
Yeah, and always a little bit of suffering is good, because those are the ones that you do remember the most, and they'll be proud of that they did it, right?
Yeah.
And I think as he gets older, he's just going to be asking you, hey, can we go camping, right? Yeah. It's going to be something he's going to want to do.
Yeah, I'm going to take him. I took him hunting a little bit last year. I got drawn for elk, cow elk, and muley buck this year. So I'm going to take him out hunting this year a bit too. Any tips for taking kids hunting?
Yeah, again, you don't want to do the 20-kilometer hoof up a mountain with them, but if it's something, let's say you shoot a doe, sort of an easier quarry. Yeah. You're pulling it out. Make him feel like he's helping to pull that sled with you, and hoisting it up, and patting the deer. We always give a prayer of thanks, and he's just part of the butchering, man. My grandson's favorite thing is the meat grinder. It's almost freaky. Like, he just loves the meat grinder because it's like a big Lego toy. It's got all these moving parts, and obviously we got to be safe around the meat grinder, but he knows how to put it together. And then we put the headphones on, and we allow him to push the meat through the grinder. Okay. And he just loves that. Yeah. Like, he'll do that for hours. And
perfect. Yeah. Free labor.
We finished grinding up the deer. He's like, Bubba, you got to get another deer. Yeah, he would do it all day.
Do you take him hunting with you then?
Yeah, we take him hunting. Again, he's not hoofing it through big cut blocks or anything, but he's been along. And grouse hunting, go out for some chickens, and that's easy.
That's an easy one. Yeah, that'll definitely be on the list this year. Are you geared up for hunting this year then? Like, we're August now?
Oh, man, I'm starting to feel it already. I'm getting the itch, even though it's early. I'm starting to, as they say, there's 2 seasons in life, hunting season and preparing for hunting season. So... yeah, I know. I'm already thinking about the ammo and sighting in the guns and where am I going
Yeah.
and the tags. I did get drawn for cow elk, so I'm pretty pumped.
Okay, yeah.
You got some draws.
Yeah, I got
here.
cow elk too, yeah. I'm south of Hinton here.
Yeah.
And you're up north somewhere?
I'm going up north, and you got muley as well.
Yeah,
eh?
muley just north of Hinton too.
Awesome.
So, and
Good
both
on
of
you.
mine are mid-September to end of November, so it'll be like it's a long season.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my dad. He's got a couple good spots where he thinks we can get a cow elk pretty easy. So
Well, I almost ran out of meat here in the freezer, which is always a horror for me. And I thought, I'll just go buy a beefsteak. I do that maybe once a year. So I
Yeah.
walked into the store that was this week. I thought I'm home alone tonight.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy a good steak. My jaw hit the floor. Like
Yeah.
$67 per kilogram on some of
Wow.
this stuff, eh? Like for a prime rib. And I ended up taking a lesser cut, but it was still $13 for a decent steak.
yeah,
I'm like, I just can't do this. I don't know how people do it without hunting and filling the freezer with some good
yeah.
venison, elk, moose. Yeah.
What is? I know we're kind of getting off topic with the kids thing, but I'm curious. What is your like sighting in your gun? What do you do? Are you going out into the bush, setting up a target somewhere, or do you go to the range? Or
I go in the bush mostly because I like the privacy of it, and there's so
Yeah.
many places you can get on a
yeah,
private spot or gravel pit and do that. But hey, if the range is your thing, that's fantastic. And making sure I'm getting some decent groupings. And I do a lot of dry firing too, and some guys hate it. They think it wrecks your firing pin. I don't think it does, not with modern rifles, because you don't want to develop a flinch anyway, but just
yeah.
dry firing, getting that fine motor skills going.
Do you use
So
those fake bullets?
I haven't. I know guys who have developed a flinch will use those fake
Yeah,
bullets.
I'll show you what they look like.
Oh, you've got some.
Yeah.
Does that mean you're flinchy?
Yeah.
George has left the studio. He's coming back out with his bullets.
Yeah, these are like I can't remember what they're called. But my buddy, he does a lot of shooting, and he
Okay.
really recommended using these.
Yeah.
And so like you put them into your rifle, and you pull the trigger and you just cycle them through. I am flinching. Like I know I'm not a good shot. So I'm
Okay.
always trying to be like, okay, spend a lot of time.
But aren't you supposed to pack them in your clip so you've got some live rounds and some duds so you don't know what's coming next?
No.
But okay.
Not in this
I'm
scenario.
Like, you kind of know if you pack it yourself, right?
This is like, so there's the trick that we do is you'll have like a piece of paper with a dot on it, and you're looking through the scope, and when you pull the trigger, you want to make sure that you're still zeroed in on that dot.
Okay.
So like you can put like a dot on the
Yep.
garage door and shoot it that way. I don't know if it's helped. I feel like I was better last year. Like I had one shot, one kill, so that was good. But I don't know. I'm always trying to improve my game because I don't know if I just get it. I get super excited, at that point, and then it's like okay, and then you're, shooting into the dirt or shooting 40 feet above them. So
Well, that's cool. Yeah, no, for me, dry firing, I think, does a similar thing.
yeah,
Because then you can see, did I flinch? As you know, you don't want to slap a trigger. You want to gently squeeze it. And you want the trigger to surprise you. You want to be a weird thing that I've tried to do and I've taught my kids, and I'm not pretending I'm a sniper or anything, but we've done shots at 400, 500 yards,
yeah,
is almost pretend you're falling asleep. It's like a state of mind, and just relax.
yeah,
And just try to I'm so falling asleep right now.
yeah.
And just get that heart rate down. And if you can get yourself in that state of mind, you will improve your shot like unbelievable.
I feel like I can do that when I'm target practicing, but when I see the giant buck running out on the road, it's like,
Yeah.
I can't fall asleep.
Yeah.
How old were your kids when they first started shooting?
Oh man, I was thinking, is it 13 when you? I have to look at the regs again, but as soon as they were legal,
Yeah,
they were out shooting.
yeah.
My daughter,
Maybe 12 actually. I'm not.
my daughter Sage, excellent. Well, they've all been really good hunters, but here's this young girl, probably 13, and she would always do freestanding shots, and I keep telling her, Sage, you got to lean against a tree or get down on a knee.
Yeah,
And I remember we saw this buck out in the field, and it was getting twilight, and it was pretty far away. And I said, Sage, I'm going to shoot this thing because it's really far. And she was like, oh, I want to shoot it. And
Yeah.
I was like, no, Dad's going to shoot this one. So I get on one knee, and I'm just breathing, dialing in.
Falling asleep.
And falling asleep. And suddenly I hear this boom right by my ear. And I look up, and she looks at me, and she's freestanding. She goes, you took too long. And this thing hit the ground, and it was like 200 yards. I was like, you are so lucky you dropped that thing, because I would have been so miffed if you would have missed.
Yeah.
But yeah, she said it like she was an old professional cowboy. But I am trying to teach her that you'll still be better leaning on something.
Yeah,
right?
lean on something. Yeah. Give yourself a few more points of contact.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of all the questions I had for the kids one. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up, Scott, before we wind this one down?
No, I found a cool quote today, which was kind of cool. And the quote, the meme was, let's raise children that can name plants and animals and not celebrities and brands.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, hey, I'm all behind that,
Yeah.
you know? Like, how cool when a kid can grow up and walk in a forest, know
Yeah.
the plants, the mushrooms, the bugs, the trees, the fish. And if they can learn the brands that they see on their phones or on TV, well, they could certainly learn the stuff that's out in nature, right?
Was it tough for, like, I know your kids probably were even a little bit before, like, the age of the cell phone and internet and stuff, but, like, TV. Was it tough to get them away from TV as teenagers, or they're always like, okay, we're going in the bush?
Maybe we didn't have the great Game Boy or the great, I don't even know, Xbox
N64,
or all that stuff. So I think part of that was limiting. Their friends had better stuff than we had at home, right? So I think that was part of it. But they really did enjoy being outdoors and this whole thing of being able to name plants. I remember my kids would come home and they'd be like, Dad, I met this woman on the trail. I'm like, yeah. She said, you look like a Sunderwald kid. And yeah. Can you name these mushrooms? So I helped her identify mushrooms. I'm like, I hope you did the right thing.
Yeah.
You know? But they did really grow up learning their plants and mushrooms and fish and trees. So
I feel like
it can be done.
That's the battle I might have already. It's like Casey's 3 now, but like his aunt for his birthday or whatever got him like a fake little cell phone that he like loves, and I'm like, already, I'm like, oh no. And then like, I mean, the nieces and stuff, like they're young, they all got cell phones and computers and TVs in their rooms, and
yeah,
it's just like I feel like it's gonna be a battle.
It's hard to compete with, but you know, boys especially have a high drive for risk and excitement.
Yeah.
A little bit of danger. So things like downhill skiing, rock climbing, mountain biking, that thrill-seeking edge, I think, is going to give them more of a high than the smartphone. You know,
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but I mean, it's a battle that everyone's got to face now. It's so accessible, and everyone's got their video games and their computers, and yeah. Cheers to all the parents out there that are taking their kids out and at least, you know, trying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not easy raising kids. I would just say the more you can take them out in nature, the better. Yeah. I don't think there's ever a day I've gone out in the bush that I've regretted, you know. Even the days where things, quote unquote, went wrong, I was glad for the experiences.
Yeah.
Whereas there's plenty of days I went to the city and regretted it.
Yeah. I'm excited for our next few episodes. We've got a couple planned. One you're lining up, or we might have lined up in the very near future, with a guy that's survived a bear attack.
Yeah.
Interesting one. So looking forward to that. And then I think we got to do a hunting one too. We talked a little bit about hunting this one, but as hunting season comes up, maybe we'll get Aaron back on too and talk about some bow hunting.
His bow hunting and tree stands. He's really got the angle on that. But yeah. If, the story about Morris Archibald and his bear attack. Yeah. You're going to want to tune in on that, and I can't wait. Yeah. We'll drill him on the fine details, but he survived a grizzly attack. Not everybody can say that, so that's going to be a good one.
Northern.Rockies.Bushcraft. You can follow along with Scott on his adventures. You got anything planned in the next month here? Going anywhere special or anything?
Some of the kids are coming home this weekend, speaking about kids, and they're battling whether we do a canoe trip on the river or some multi-pitch rock climbing. So that's going to be one or the other.
Cool. Okay.
Yep.
Well, keep us in the loop of how that goes, and we'll follow along. Northern Rockies Bushcraft. If you have a question for Scott or for the podcast, send it into wildernesswave@outlook.com. And leave us a review on Spotify or iTunes. And it's been awesome getting all the emails from you guys. Really appreciate that. And we'll have we got some more Ask Scott questions already coming in for next week. So
Right on.
perfect. Okay, well, thanks for listening, guys.
Wilderness Wavelength.
Welcome back to another bath time adventure with Caseroni. Case, we're talking camping on this episode of the podcast. Do you like camping?
Yeah, I like camping.
What is your favorite part about going camping?
I like going to Monster Truck Adventure.
Monster Truck Adventures. Oh, yeah, that does sound like fun. When we go camping, we can always bring stuff with us, and we sleep in a little trailer. Do you like sleeping in the trailer instead of your bed?
No.
And what's... It is a little different doing this in a bathtub case, but...
Let me hold it.
I don't know about you holding the mic. We're just talking camping. Case, if you're going camping, what's your favorite place to go camping? Do you like camping on the lakes or a river?
Probably
Lakes, yeah. And then you can go swimming, and then you can do some boating, and then you can do some floating. And what do you like throwing into lakes and rivers?
going into the rivers.
And then what do you throw into the river?
Rocks.
And do you have a favorite color of rock you like finding?
I like the striped ones.
Oh, there are some really cool striped rocks, isn't there? Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about camping and camping with toddlers and kids on this episode. Do you have any advice for someone that has a kid? What should they bring? What should you always bring with you when you go camping?
A monster truck to find other monster trucks.
A monster truck to find other. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. So always bring a toy monster truck. And what's your favorite camping food you bring with us then?
Food and crackers. Food and crackers.
Food and crackers. Well, thanks for joining me on this another bathtub interview, Caseroo. You have a good sleep tonight, and we'll see you camping soon, right?
Yeah, goodbye.